What's up, guys? My name is Jake Paulson, and you're listening to the first ever episode of the Jake C. Paulson podcast. I'm excited. I've been meaning to start this for about a week now. Not very long, but hey, I put things into action, and we're doing it. So this is going to be the first ever podcast. I really put this together because, honestly, I felt like a lot of the things that I'm learning, I wanted to share with a bigger audience, people that can use them right now, people that will hopefully just make a thought into their head of like, oh, cool, I can use that later down the line. Or I just say something that really resonates with someone and they take action towards a new habit or I don't know, whatever is in their business, their leadership, or their community. So really it's going to be dedicated to making a piece of content every week, whether it's a 2-part, 3-part, 4-part series or whatever it is, or interviewing someone. And I'm going to try to keep it between 15, 20 minutes, 10, 15, 20 minutes, somewhere in there. Just a quick little, hey, let's get right on point. Let's get started with it. I just want the content. I want to add some value in a short time. But I also want to throw in some stories. And some things that I'm learning throughout my life and relate it. Because I think it goes a long way, especially for me. It's good for me to talk about this stuff, but hopefully it's good for the viewer or the listener to actually, and you guys to actually get some value out of it. So it's centered around growing yourself in your leadership, growing yourself in your personal development, and growing yourself in your business, in your entrepreneurship journey. I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a leader, and I'm a sales manager, and I'm 23. But I read a lot, I do a lot of things that I just try to gain as much value into myself and develop myself a lot. So that's why I'm putting this together. I know what I'm talking about to a certain extent, but I think I'm going to come from a different perspective and some fresh ideas that's going to be good for people that are not just starting out in business, but people that have been in business and might have hit like this wall. Hopefully I'll spark something in people like that. And hopefully this is just good for the community. I think I'd be able to add some value through stories, through the whole different everyone's communities around them, and just make them a better person in society. So this is gonna be fun. I'm excited. So I appreciate you guys being on and listening to this. Today, I'm gonna cover. This is a 2-part series. It's about the 10 habits of highly effective leaders. The 10 habits of highly effective leaders. Today, we're gonna cover the first 5 habits of highly effective leaders. Ralph Waldo Emerson, I want to start off with this quote. Man, he's got a lot of quotes. Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, "You sow a thought, you reap an action. You sow an act, and you reap a habit. You sow a habit, and you reap a character. You sow a character, and you reap a destiny." So true. Whenever you think of something, that something should turn into an action. That action should turn into a habit. That habit will eventually turn into who you are, your character. And that character is eventually going to end up where you end up, your destiny, right? So that's the quote I want to start off with. You are who you are today because of your habits, honestly. And so today we're going to talk about the 10 habits that will help you become a more influential leader in your business, your personal life, and your community. So I'm excited. Let's dive in. Okay, habit number one. Let's just jump right into these. Number 1 is reading. Reading is one of the most overlooked habits. At least it was for me. I know there's a lot of people that read. There's a lot of people that listen to audiobooks, podcasts and all that stuff. I personally don't think that podcasts are the same thing as audiobooks. I don't think audiobooks are the same thing as actually reading. This might be controversial, but I would say that you get more out of reading a physical book than you do an audiobook. Now, maybe everyone's different. Some people might be an auditory listener or a visual learner, but this is just for me. Personally, I think there's a lot of benefits to it. But if you make a daily habit of reading or listening to an audiobook, you can do that too. That's great. Better than not, right? But if you make a daily habit of that, that's just daily intake for your brain. Just daily intake. I always say don't base your results, or don't base your um, like don't base your self-worth on your results. You should base your how much you're worth to yourself on how much you're doing, like your input, all the things you're inputting into yourself. So reading is a great way to do that. Some of the most influential people are some of the most smart people. Like if you watch Joe Rogan, for instance, he is one of the smartest people now because he's read so many articles. You can tell that he reads a lot because he comes in and his vocabulary, like if you look at his first episodes to now, his vocabulary is wildly different. He's articulate. He can listen a lot better. He understands more. And I think that's just because he reads and he reads and he reads and he reads every time. He's a professional at what he does. I mean, he's just a professional speaker and a professional communicator. He's really good at it because he reads a lot and he understands the stuff that he reads. So whether you want to read something that's fiction, that's fine. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Or I personally don't read fiction. I read nonfiction. I read a lot. I have a bunch of books over here. But whether you want to read something that's going to grow you, say, in entrepreneurship, or it's going to grow you in your, your habits or your personal development or sales, learn a book on managing, or whether it's just how to listen. I literally have a book over here called Just Listen. And it's a great book. It's a great book. It's all about just listening. It's crazy how much listening goes a long way. But I learned a lot from that book. So making it a daily habit of actually reading or something, intaking something, okay, reading an article, whatever it is, and you'll find, trust me, you'll find that your vocabulary is way better. Way better. I remember in 7th grade, I read my first whole book. It was called Lawn Boy. It was about this kid that made a lawn business. Crazy that I remember this book. But it's about a kid that made a lawn business, and I don't remember even something about the lawn business. And then the next book I read was Diary of a Wimpy Kid. From cover to, those are like 2 books that I remember that I definitely read cover to cover, which is crazy until college, which is insane. But in college, my sophomore year, I still had not read a book till my sophomore year. And then in sophomore year, I read Success Through a Positive Mental Attitude. And that one I was like, what? What am I even reading? I got it from the library, and there was people that they were like people underlining and circling and highlighting like page after page. I'm like, what the heck? I've never seen a book like that. I was like, I've never heard of this book. Definitely isn't used for a class or anything, but they really just went in deep with it. So that was a great book that I had. So reading is a great way to not only build your vocabulary, build your knowledge, make you a smarter person, which in turn is going to help you build influence. That's number 1. Number 2, exercise. The habit of exercise is beneficial in a lot of different ways. It's not just to help you look better. Of course it's going to help you look better. When I first started working out, it was literally just to help me look better. That's it. I remember I was in 7th grade. I was working out with the seniors in my high school for this football players. And I would only go there to do weights. And I was just like, I want a 6-pack. I want to go out on these boats with people, or I want to look like this person. Every kid has who they want to look like, right? And that's why I started working out, is I literally just wanted to look good. But over time of doing that, I've realized there's so many other benefits to it. There's so many other benefits. For one, it's hard. And so doing something hard is just a good thing to do. For 2, it's not only is it going to help you look better, but it's going to help you think clearer. I've realized that. It's like escaping. Like I know a lot of people that need to work out, not just because of the physical thing. Like they just need to release energy. I'm sure some of us were that type of kid that were just like super high energy when they were kids, needed to be doing something all the time, needed to be doing something with their hands. If that's you and you're not exercising, go out, do it. It's not a bad thing. Get an accountability partner. Just go out and do it. And by having peace of mind, honestly, it's going to help you listen better. I know it sounds kind of funky, but it really will. Getting away from your thoughts and putting that all to the side to go do this challenging thing is going to help you with your interactions with people. It's going to help you listen to people better. And that's a great thing to do. Being a good listener goes a long way. It's a simple way to build your influence. So for me, that exercise right now is running. I've been really into running. I'm training for a marathon. I run a ton. I've never even known I can run this much anymore or ever. So yeah, running's a big one for me. It's just a long process of not thinking and just doing one thing. One foot in front of the other, in front of the other, in front of the other. So I will relate running as I'm training for this marathon to a lot of different things in this podcast because that's just what's on my mind. That's number 2, exercise. Number 3 is scribing or journaling. Scribing or journaling. Same thing, just 2 different words. But this is another concept that I did not like to do. I hated journaling. Like I hated reading. And I just didn't see the point. I was like, well, why should I journal? And what was funny was I hated it, or I didn't really hate it, but I just didn't like to do it. And I would do it. And then all of a sudden I'd be like a paragraph in and I'm like, oh, I could talk about this. Oh, I could talk about this. I could talk about this. And I was like excited to do it after I started. Same thing with running. Nobody wants to go out and run 10 miles. Who wants to do that? But when you get started, there's something in your brain that clicks and it's like, oh, I could beat my time from last time. Same thing here. It's like a good way to collect your thoughts and make sense of actually what's happening around you. Like for instance, a good book recommendation is Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey. He literally wrote this book with a ton. It's like one of the best books I've ever read. He's got a ton of stories. Talks about him when he goes to Australia, lives with his family. I just remember all this because he's good at telling stories. And the reason he has all these stories with all these little details is because he took time every day to just write and just write about what he was experiencing. It's such an easy thing to do, but it's one thing that it's really easy not to do as well. It's really easy to just go, there's nothing worth writing about today. But if you don't take the intentional time to actually write out what you're experiencing, a lot of those experiences are just going to be gone and you're not going to remember them. He literally wrote that whole book, 200 something pages, on what he experienced in his life because all he had to do was go through all these different notes, all these different journal entries from when he was younger. And that's literally all he did. So it helps you be in the moment and it helps you not forget about things. Imagine if and a lot of people that are going to be watching this deal with people on a daily basis, whether it's you're out of school and you have to deal with kids, or whether it's you are a leader in your business and you have to deal with the people you lead, or you are a parent, you have to deal with your kids or whatever it is. Obviously I don't have kids yet. I'm 23 years old, but one day I want to, so I'm learning a lot about it. So I might have some good insight on it. I don't know. We'll see. But whether you deal with people or you don't, I guess the biggest thing is really just learning how to process what people tell you. It's a huge part of dealing with people. If someone says something to you and gets pretty vulnerable with you, and you just kind of brush it under the rug and kind of forget about it, that's kind of a recipe for you building the habit of not really caring what the people around you are saying. And that's not building influence with people. But if you go home, or you just right then and there go to, as you're in the go to the bathroom or something, pull out your phone and make a note of that. That's journaling. And just that way your brain consciously is putting something on a page. I recommend the best way to do it is pen and paper. Like I'll take this out and this is where I'll write all my ideas. I'll do it right after I read too, because my brain is just fired up. So I'll do it right after I read at the end of the night, and I'll journal a page in this, which is not very big. It's like a paragraph. And it'll be an idea of something that I'm reading and something that happened during the day. That helps me stay sharp. It helps me remember things. It helps me be a person of influence, I guess, so to speak. So that's number 3, journaling. Number 4, self-affirmation. Now, I'm not saying to do some things that like to just talk to yourself all day. Self-affirmation is not just having a monologue or a dialogue with yourself. That's terrible. Okay, that's not like sitting here going, hey, how's your day? Like having lunch with someone and all of a sudden going, oh, hold up. Yeah, Jake, I just remembered what we were talking about earlier. Like, Okay, that's like psychotic. Don't be doing that. That's some Shutter Island stuff, all right? Don't be doing that. But self-affirmation, if you have no monologue with yourself, like if you have no voice in the back of your head giving yourself positive feedback or positive thoughts, then automatically we as human beings will resort to negative thoughts. It's just human nature. Just human nature. If you resort to negative thoughts, that is when you're doing something challenging and it's hard and there's so many things going against you. That is when that little voice in the back of your head, if you don't have something positive to reinforce, that voice will creep in and go, hey, you weren't really doing this for the long run, were you? It is, it was going to get hard, but this is really hard. Like, can you do this? Can you finish this? Or the voice that says, really, it's just the rationalization of this voice because all these negative thoughts start creeping in. But if you have positive self-affirmations, that voice, it traps that voice and that voice just doesn't come out. So whether this is, and even a challenge you could do for this is just writing down 20 things or just writing down 5 things, 5 affirmations in the morning, 5 things you're grateful for. I don't know, things that just get your mind in the right spot so your mind doesn't resort to just negativity. I think of an example for this when I'm running like a race, 5, 10K or whatever. At the end of the race, I am hurting. I started off strong. Usually I do my runs, I don't start strong, but in races, I try to start strong. And then I just keep going, and I keep going, and I keep going. I push past these different levels, and I'm like, I didn't even know I could do that. I had no idea I could even run that far or that fast. And at the very end of the race, you want to give your best at the end. And I'm like David Goggins, like, you don't know me, son. Like, no, I don't say that, but I have my own version of that. I have my own version. I remind myself that, hey, it's not about this one race. It's really about the 20-something miles you're going to run. But man, you can do this though. Think about all the miles you just trained. Think about all those miles. And if you guys don't know, if you don't know much about marathon training, just to give you an example, you run 26.2 miles for the marathon in a day, right? 26.2 miles. And this last month was 4 weeks of training. I ran 100 and something miles to train for only that 26.2 miles. And that's just 4 weeks of a 16-week training. So training is a lot. So if you remind yourself during that race, that's how I do it, is I remind myself all the work that I put in to get to this point. That's what keeps me going. That's what fires me up. That's called positive self-affirmations or positive self-talk. That'll be a later episode. We'll talk about that. That's number 4. Number 5, planning. John C. Maxwell says, the success of your day is determined by your daily agenda. Or he really says your success is ultimately determined by your daily agenda, what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. Now, for me, back in college, I had no idea what I was doing on a day-to-day basis. I mean, I had my class schedule, but really I wasn't like following. They give you an agenda, like one of these, and I didn't follow that. I don't really know many people that did. And I just would go to class every Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I knew what I was doing at night, from 7 p.m. on or 8 p.m. on. And maybe I had a gym, I had a gym outline of what I wanted to do, but that is it. That was literally it. If you wanted to plan something with me, I would literally not remember until the day before. I'm like, oh, shoot, that's tomorrow, which is probably better than some people, honestly. But again, you can imagine how my grades looked. No schedule at all, just kind of floating through the day, going to class and sometimes not going to class and not knowing when assignments are due. So then when I learned about the concept of a daily agenda and how to actually put habits into your day and how to actually successfully make a schedule, I started to every single Sunday, I would outline, okay, this is what I'm doing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. These are all of my assignments. These are the most important ones that are worth the most points. These are when they're all due. Okay, Wednesday is when I'm going to get this one done. That's due on Sunday, so I can have Saturday free. Thursday is when I'm doing, I actually built it into my schedule when I was going to work out, when I was going to go to class, when I was going to go to the library, when I had work. All that stuff was actually in my schedule, And it really freed up a lot more time than when I had no schedule. So think about that. It freed up a lot more time than when I had no schedule. And so once I started actually to take a good look, my grades got a lot better, and I could plan for my future and my grades and create more time for myself. So those are the first 5 ways of the top 10 habits of highly effective leaders. I appreciate you guys listening to this first episode. Really, the only reason I'm doing this is to really add value to people who are actively trying to strive to get better, whether it's in their business, in their personal life, or in their community, and build their own influence. Okay? Because I know that these habits, some of them might be simple concepts, right? But they're not easy. Okay? Some of them might be simple, but they're not easy. So it takes really, really a lot of intentionality to actually do these things and put them into practice. So between now and the next one that comes out, I challenge you to go, scale of 1 to 10. How well are you doing on this habit? 1 through 5. Rewind this video, look at the show notes. 1 through 5, how well are you doing? If you're doing well, great, keep it going. If you're not, put it into your schedule. Just make it a higher priority than something else. And you'll find that it'll grow yourself, and one day you'll wake up with wildly different goals than what you have right now. So I really hope this was helpful. Really appreciate it. Like it, comment on it, tell me your feedback. Go subscribe to my Instagram, Jake Paulson, Jake C. Paulson on LinkedIn, Facebook, Jake Paulson. And I really appreciate you guys. Next meeting, we're going to be covering the 6 through 10. So stay tuned for that. I look forward to hearing some comments and seeing some likes. All right. I appreciate you guys. Let's get after it. I will see y'all next time. Peace.